Okay, so let's take a look here at lab number two. All right, so this is going to be another um, exercise using SQL. But what we're going to do is we're going to build off of um, the tables, the database, and the tables we built in um, lab one. Okay, and in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to load data. So we're going to insert data into these tables. Remember what we said is when we create these databases, the database itself is empty. All right. And then what we do is we define a database, an empty database. And then within that empty database, we define empty tables. All right. And then we load data into those tables. So after at the end of exercise one, what we had was we had a set of tables that were out there, which were really the rules. Basically, describe the rules of what was out there, but they were empty, so there was no data in those tables. All right. So what we need to do is we need to go through an exercise to add data. Right? And what there is in SQL is a command, basically what we could call insert, the insert command. Right? So let's look at so what we're going to do is we're going to populate this for this first part here. We're going to populate the country table. So let's take a look at the country table. So here's our country table. So this is a fairly small table. Bring this over. We'll take a gander at it. All right, so we look at table. Table country, when we've created it, is consists of the primary key, which is basically a number, all right, and then a country code, a country name, all right, 50 character long and required field, all right, and then the other thing we will be putting in is the timestamp for the time it was updated, all right. But the way this is constructed is this is done through this is defined right here through an auto update. All right, so this is this timestamp. We'll generate a timestamp. Put the timestamp into the field when we insert a record. All right. And as we said, the country ID is the country ID is the primary key. All right, so we're assuming in exercise two that this definition is out there, so it's in uh, the sales database. We've done this. All right. So if we take a look here, so this is the data we're going to insert. All right. So basically we go 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to start 14 countries. All right. With Afghanistan is our is one, Australia 2, Austria 3, so on and so forth, down to Yugoslavia is 14. Right? So we're going to insert 14 records. And the command, the format of the command um, is this insert into the table name, and then the fields we're going to insert, and then the data we're going to insert. All right, so this is going to be, so this is an example of what we would do to insert record, the fourth record, which would be uh, Canada. All right, so insert into country, country ID, values, the value ID, the country ID, and then the name of the country. All right, so we'll just take this over, put this in our worksheet. So as you can tell, a lot of this stuff is, a lot of times, the best approach to deal with, kind of these exercises of SQL is to sit down and, is not just typing them directly into the system right away, but actually to sit down and just edit, basically sit down and edit, kind of work it out on a piece of paper before we begin. All right, so here's an example right here. So this is going to be, we'll use this as our template. All right, and let's bring over our we'll bring over a definition of our list of all of our tables here. So the thing to remember, if you take a look at this, what's going to happen is this part of the command is all this top part, insert into country, country ID, country, is going to be the same for whatever data we enter. All right, so we could do something like this. We can say Control C. We'll just cut and paste. All right. And what we'll do is we'll say so this is our insert into country, country ID. These are the field names, and then this is the values command here. The value keyword defines what we're going to insert. We're going to insert the country ID in the country, and here's our country ID, and here's our country. We wrap it up with a semicolon. Right. So I'm going to copy this again. And in this case, we'll make it 2. And we'll make it Australia. So as you can see, this is just kind of an exercise of cutting and pasting the insert into command and then coming back in and replacing the values. Okay. And then what we will do is once we have this together, we can go out into our SQL worksheet. Says no database selected. So let's connect to our database. Oh, that's right. I have not connected a database. Ending with a semicolon. All right, as we can see, everything is green. All right, so so the first part of this is really to go through um, and create a script. And so what you would do is usually you just do it in like an editor. I'm using Word, but you can use any editor, um, and create a table with a commands with all of these others. Now, one of the things just to show you here, if I try to execute this a second time, all right, so it's successful. I got green arrows or green marks for everything. If I try this a second time, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get an error message here. This is insert into um, one Afghanistan. This command script is going to fail because I already have entries out in that table. So actually, if we want to take a look, all right. So this is going to be actually what we would do. We'll do this more into when we're doing select. When we talk about select, but we'll just do a select star from, which will translate to select everything from the country table. As you can see, here is our country code, the country name, the date stamp of when I added that table or added that entry into the table. All right. So that is just a quick example. So let's so that's um, part one of our second lab here. And these next ones will be of a similar nature. So we're going to insert the city. So if we could populate the city, populate the city. We're going to do a similar thing here. We're going to insert into city. Actually, we're going to use this script. All right. This is first one is Lethbridge, and then the other one as we go down the line. So actually, in this case, we're entering 3 fields. So the 3 fields we're entering is going to be the city ID, the city itself, and then the country ID. In the country, so what you need to do is, now one of the things is there's a connection between these two tables. All right, we talk about the, you know, the relationship between the two tables. So one of the things you want to, we have to be sure we do is we need to create all of the country codes before we populate everything in uh, the city, because otherwise what will happen is we will have a mismatch on the foreign key. All right, so we want to do this exercise first, create a script that has all of this data in it. Then create a script that has all this data in it. Same exercise, basically taking the, insert, taking this command, this insert into city, city ID, city, country ID, with these values here, 1 through 30. We're going to add 30 records into this table. And then once we do city, then the next one we'll do is address table. And then this is the example of the address command, where we take the and you'll note in some of these fields we have, with this one right here, we're going to have some more data. All right, so if you take a look, we have the address as an example here, where we will have the address ID, the address. So this is all the definitions of all the fields. All right, this is the data we're going to put in, and if you'll note, in some cases, for example, we don't have the phone number. In some cases, we do. All right, so one of the things you have to we'll have to make sure we accommodate if something is missing. So, like for example, if the postal code is blank, one, and we're short a field, we'll end up putting we put a blank in here for that particular field. And then, if we don't have a field, we insert a null. All right, so for these first 1, 2, 3, 4 records we're going to insert, we don't have the postal code, and we don't have a phone number. Right, so what we'll do is we'll put a blank. We can fill that with a blank, and then we can fill it with a null. So you have to kind of take a look at your data as we're going to go through this, and make sure that if we don't have a field, we will we put like a value, the null value into that field. Okay, and we'll go through this in we'll go through this in a bit more detail as well. Okay, that's about it.